Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. It is Thursday, so we are talking Turner syndrome. Today I want to do a little bit of a different video. I want to talk about a more experiential and emotional side of Turner's. So it is pretty common within girls and women with Turner's that they experience high sensitivity. I personally am a very sensitive person. I honestly put a lot of that on myself already, but being a highly sensitive person, it can be difficult to navigate. It can be really hard to figure out how to react to things, to figure out how to kind of differentiate between what feels like maybe an overreaction versus just reality, and you're standing up for yourself and setting boundaries, because there's a difference. So what I have found is I really need to be better at slowing down my reactions to things, because if I give myself time to process, it's not necessarily that I change how I'm feeling and what I'm trying to express, but I express it better after I've processed versus an initial gut reaction. And that can be connected to anything. That can be to something I'm seeing in Facebook world or videos or whatever. It can be in a conversation with somebody. It can be somebody's treatment of me. Anything you can react to and have an emotional response to, that applies to. High sensitivity also isn't fully just in that aspect. To me, it is really just a heightened experience overall, where you really feel the tiny details of things. I really get engrossed in the tiny questions, the tiny details, the little aspects of things, and I have to remind myself of the big picture and bring myself back to that. So it is huge when I'm researching things like I like to do, to keep that perspective. And when I'm having conversations with people about things that maybe I'm very passionate about, because we all know I get really passionate about things, it's good to keep that in mind and remind myself of that bigger perspective and take that time. The second thing is, I get very in my head. And I think farther into things, me personally, than is probably necessary, and maybe hinders me more than helps. So it can be helpful if I feel like I'm spiraling down that rabbit hole of just going around and around and around with things in my head, to break that by going and physically doing something. So if I'm dwelling on something, which I do a lot, it can help for me to physically move and go do something. Even if I'm thinking while I'm doing it, at least I'm doing something at the same time. I'm not stationary. I'm not stagnant. I'm moving. And that in and of itself can kind of help me focus. On top of it, gives me something to do with my hands, and I have to focus on that. I have to focus on properly doing whatever I'm doing. So it kind of jolts the system a little bit for me. So it breaks it up for me a little bit. It makes me focus on the task I'm doing physically, and so even if I am still thinking about those things, it's grounding in that way, and it gives me a little more sense of being in reality and feeling what the present moment is like, if that makes sense. The third thing is taking care of myself emotionally in those moments, and I know I talk a lot about self-care, but I'm more thinking of tools in your toolbox for those moments, like I've talked about. Not just knowing what works for you. That's the first step. That's easy. That's trying things, feeling out how they work, how they help you, whatever those options you want to look at are. But it's also being intentional about being prepared for those moments. Doing things proactively to set yourself up for success ahead of time for those moments. Making sure you always have whatever you need to do those things with you. Making sure you know how to do those things. And so the things that I think of are in those moments of feeling overwhelmed, of feeling like you would need those tools in your toolbox. Do you know how to do the breathing exercises? Are you praying? And so for me, in my toolbox for this, there's prayer, there's breathing exercises, there's oils, all of those things that I know how to use, I know what to do with, I know they help me, and I use them. But you have to be intentional about using them. In those moments, it needs to be a habit to use them. That needs to be your first reaction, and that's creating a habit, that's getting in a rhythm with it, and maybe even using some of those proactively instead, taking a few moments to use those when it's not one of those moments. Praying over those things when you're not actually in a moment of feeling overwhelmed. Doing breathing exercises just to practice them, or to take a little breather and a break and practice using those. And I think that can make the huge difference with not just knowing that, but also using them. And that is what I feel like has been huge for me for those moments that I feel like a lot of highly sensitive people have, where you're just overwhelmed with whatever it is. It can be worry, it can be processing, it can be emotions that have built up, whatever it is. Those are huge to have as a habit. So those are my thoughts, those are my tips. I could do like a whole video on being a highly sensitive person and what that experience is like. And I do feel like I see a lot of other girls and women with Turners sharing about feeling like this, sharing about those experiences, and I've touched on a little bit of my experience, but I could definitely share more. If you have any thoughts or tips and tricks you like to use, or experiences you want to share, questions, leave them in the comments below. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me. If you like this video and it helped you in some way, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, share it with a friend. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye!